The glory days are here to stay, the 80s horror show. Take a stroll down memory's lane, it's time to start the show. The gory days, the gory days, the gory days, the gory days.
Welcome to the Gory Days, the show where we take a stroll down memory lane to remember our favorite horror movies from the 1980s and early 1990s. The world is burning. I look out my window this morning and there's ash falling from the sky. Loyal listeners, what is happening? This morning, quite literally, I got up out of bed to feed my cats, like I do, get in the shower, like I do, and when I came out... What's that smell? I smell fire. I smell something burning, and so I'm going around the house. Did I leave something on? Is that the heater? What's going on? I never find anything. I get my clothes on, I go out the door, and oh my God! Not since like early 2000s with that big giant fire when I was in elementary school have I seen the sky orange and haze everywhere and my car covered in ash. What is happening? Ladies and gentlemen, loyal listeners of the Gory Days, welcome. My name is Kyle Leone, of course, here sitting in my tin can of a recording studio in Los Angeles, California, closer than you might think to the Ventura Hills that are ablaze today. We've got both sides of the valley on fire. Oh my gosh. Oh, I don't know what to do. And I certainly don't know why I'm bringing it up now. It has nothing to do with the movie I picked today. It just seemed like a nice topical thing.
No,
listen, well, we're doing something unusual. We're recording this mere hours before it's getting to your ear holes, because I have a fantastic guest here who is hard to pin down. He's got a shifting schedule. I've been trying to get him in here for weeks, and only now, finally, tonight, am I able to get him in here. You know him from YouTube. Finally, here in the studio on the Gory Days, you know him, you love him, Danny J. Padilla. Welcome.
Hey, how's it going? That was an amazing intro, by the way.
Oh.
I actually just sat in complete silence because I just wanted to give you the honor you deserve for that intro.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's great to be here. I apologize for the multiple rescheduling.
You're so busy. You're so important. You're a big fancy LA YouTuber. No, seriously.
Yeah. I mean, it's that's kind of what it's been like. I mean, I've been trying to balance music and YouTube. There are two different worlds in which I feel like I'm almost kind of like competing with people who do it full time, and I'm kind of trying to do part time for each of them almost. But overall, it's definitely something that I really enjoy. But obviously, it's definitely a grind, especially because I have to kind of make my own schedule, which I think is a big thing.
Did I forget to say? I said YouTuber. I'm sorry. You're also a musician.
No. Totally fine. They kind of go hand in hand for a lot of people. Yeah.
What's
YouTube musician, personality, all that kind of stuff.
Thanks for complimenting me on my intro. What's the full intro for you?
Oh, my intro. Hi.
Actor, singer, dancer.
Yeah. No, it's a YouTube musician and personality. Usually is what I say. Danny Padilla. I like to make people smile and give big ol' hugs, even though a lot of my music's really sad.
I noticed that. Yeah. I was watching a lot of your videos leading up to today, and I've noticed a lot of them are pretty sad.
Yeah.
It seems like your users or your listeners respond to that, though.
Yeah, totally. I think it's just because I really like to grasp, I like to show the entire emotional spectrum of a human, because I think a lot of people definitely try and go towards specifically like comedy only, and they don't show their entire humaneness, I guess, or humanity is the correct term. I personally just am really interested in showing both, I guess, and I'm not really going to shy away,
That's interesting you say that, because I never would have thought about it until you mentioned it, that YouTubers kind of have an example of TV personalities and maybe even, talk show hosts and things to pigeonhole themselves into one category. They're a comedian, they're a singer, or... Yeah. Maybe they're a singer and a comedian. But
totally. Yeah,
they're not going to branch over into maybe the more depressive emotions that they feel or things.
Right.
Unless maybe it's their YouTube page is about slice of life, like they just do slice of life videos.
Totally.
So do you find that people respond more to that than the others, like Flula Borg, who's I know exactly what I'm getting when I watch this video. Danny posted a video. Is it going to be sad? Is it going to be happy? Is it going to be silly?
Right, or a mixture of both. I think because the thing is, I've always wanted people to kind of care more about me as a person in kind of a 360 sense rather than just caring about the content I'm able to create. Because I think that it's really what's I don't know how to like go about even saying this, but like yeah, like I know a lot of people on the internet who particularly do try and get their entire personality out there, including myself, for the sake of just getting people to kind of see you as a full human being. I think like I don't know, because the big goal a lot of times is to get people on Twitter and Facebook, Instagram to follow you, and and a lot of times they'll want to follow you as a person if they know kind of all aspects of you,
Right.
know, and you actually seem like a real life human being to them, which is why I try and portray every single thing. Because like there's no single person who's always upbeat, there's no single person who's always sad, there's no, well, that one's easier to do than upbeat, but yeah, but at the same time, I don't know, I like being the most realistic, because I think that some stuff can be a little bit hyperbolized on YouTube.
No,
so
absolutely.
I definitely try and keep it real, and my music usually is sad, I think, because that's like usually when I want to songwrite, I guess, is when I'm sad, and when I'm happy I want to go out and party with friends and stuff. So yeah, so I write about the sad stuff. Yeah,
I feel like that comes from the celebrity culture, that these people, I mean, not to point fingers or say anything, but it seems from the outside looking in that it's a climbing to the celebrity plateau.
Sure.
That I'm not Jessica Biel, I'm not Taylor Swift. I'm not these big people who just got a magic wand waved and they got their careers laid out for them. I have to make it. I have to do it myself.
Yeah, totally.
And so it seems like there's a compulsion to only want to put out your best self at all times.
Totally, yeah.
And, celebrity culture, the other side of that is like National Enquirer or People magazine, where they show the dark side of Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt's relationship that you would never ordinarily know because they don't talk about it because that's not interesting.
Yeah. But at the same time, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I actually think it's more interesting to find out the I don't know. It just makes you look more like a legitimate person, and I think it allows people on the internet to be able to identify with you. Because I think a big thing is trying to be relatable, and I don't know like how people feel like they're relatable if they only are always upbeat, or something like that. Because especially,
or if they're always playing a character.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's a big insider, and I think what's great too is that on YouTube, it feels like you're being exposed specifically to a target audience of people that actually might be struggling a little bit, because I find that a lot of big YouTube fans are people who in like real life are not necessarily very adept socially, or are kind of struggling to find fit in real life and find friends, so they actually go to YouTube to kind of find their friends, and these people who post about their lives all the time, like me, it's like you kind of feel like you're living vicariously through their life and that you're friends, even though it's kind of a one-sided relationship.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but it's interesting, and it's kind of cool though, because it means that you can kind of help out the people that might necessarily need the help, and who feel like they're struggling. So
I want to talk about more about what you do and your experience, but for people who aren't familiar with you, who are you? Where can people find you? What do you do?
Right.
What is your...
Totally. So I'm Danny Padilla. Padilla, it's like quesadilla, but with puh. I don't know. And I'm on YouTube mostly. I think YouTube's kind of my main platform. I have like 183,000 subscribers on there or something, which is kind of cool. I've kind of amassed that following from a series of different types of videos. I kind of started in the cover world because I'd seen a lot of my friends and a lot of people doing a lot of cover songs on YouTube, and I, as a musician, kind of wanted to get into that. But then I kind of got a little bit of acclaim for a video concept I had with our mutual friend, Mason Sperling, where we would cover songs, but we would do it live, and we'd try and mess the other person up by holding up signs that had impersonations and accents on them. So I guess the fact that it was kind of impromptu and we were clearly messing up, but some of the impersonations weren't that bad, I guess. The video concept went like semi-viral, and that's where I got a lot of my following from. And then I started posting a little bit more of vlog content, as you'd call it, where it's a lot more talking to the camera and a lot more stuff like that, because I think I ended up enjoying making that type of content a little bit more. So yeah, and that's what I've been doing. But then along with that, I've been releasing a bunch of original music, which I've had some success with. I don't know if you knew recently about Taylor Swift. She released a playlist on Spotify of like her favorite songs right now, and one of my songs was on there.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
When did that happen?
That was September 29th. I feel so weird for knowing the exact date, but I mean, it was a pretty pivotal day, because I think it was just a really big, because I think, well, in the entertainment industry, you kind of get a lot of people saying like yes or no to your career almost, whether or not they promote what you're doing, I guess. And with Taylor Swift liking my music, I think it was just like a huge yes for me, and I felt like I kind of needed to win at that point, so it was really nice. Yeah, and it resulted in a few 100,000 more streams, and I can't help but think that maybe she knows the words to my song, stuff like that. So it was really cool. It was a nice little thing, yeah. But she ends up, I guess she loves it, so yeah.
So how do you stay grounded when something like that happens? How do you not let yourself? I mean, she's a celebrity and she picked you. How do you not let your head float away into the clouds?
She is the biggest female artist I think in the world right now. So I
don't
know.
Now that Adele maybe, went with her hubby,
something like that. Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, I think it's because I stay more humble about that because I also I don't know, for that one I tried to keep my expectations down. Like I didn't really expect like, oh, I'm just gonna be famous now. Like I am famous because Taylor Swift likes my music, you know. I don't know. I think it'll always be a humbling experience. I'll always love, especially meeting people in real life. After those videos went big, the impersonation covers, we would, you know, at our university or the university that I went to, we would, anytime I would go to the dining commons, people would want to take photos and stuff, and it was a really cool experience. And I don't know. I don't ever want to take that for granted because it's such a great thing that, and like people are taking time out of their lives to show appreciation to me and my stuff, and I just can't imagine anyone really getting tired of it, honestly.
No, and I've known you for a while. You mentioned that we went to the same university, and I've known you as the kind of person that is always just kind of humble and is always kind of brushing compliments off, even as they're being like given to you by complete strangers, which in any other realm would make for instance, head get really big and make me think like, oh, well, suddenly I deserve to be known at Subway, and why don't they have my order memorized?
Totally, yeah. I don't really know. I think it's almost to a fault sometimes that I feel like I deflect compliments and stuff like that. But I understand that though. I don't really know where it comes from though.
That's for your therapist to decide.
Yeah. I can't necessarily explain where it comes from, but I definitely am glad that people seem to think that I'm, humble about it.
So you're able to make a living off this at this point, right? Do you have a day job?
I drive Lyft to make ends meet.
Okay.
I am an official Lyft driver. But typically, my revenue comes from song sales, ad revenue, and brand integrations. Anytime I work with a brand to promote their product.
Like what?
So, for example, sometimes anytime I integrate a brand into a video, so I'll kind of give them like a shout out. Like, for example, I did one recently with Best Fiends, which is like an app game that like
the slug one, right?
Yeah. It's actually a pretty good game. I really enjoy it. But I was paid to
$5 in the pocket.
Yeah. So I was basically paid to promote Best Fiends in my content, and the company who developed Best Fiends just pays me for that because they're paying for my audience.
Nice.
And they pay you even better if you do social media posts on your Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that kind of stuff. That's kind of a thing that happens, and sometimes I get these weird things from my YouTube management team where they'll give me opportunities. Like I once went to like a Latin American music festival for like 8 hours between 2 different days and got paid like $5,000 just to do that.
Just to be there?
Yeah, just to be there and post about it and kind of go around and experience it.
Wow.
So yeah, that's my Latin Americanness paying off. Yeah.
So you mentioned that it was one viral video that just kind of made this happen. Up until then, you were a full-time student at a university getting a major for a career to get a 9-to-5 desk job. Do you miss that? Is that something you want? Is this something that's been thrust on you that you're enjoying, but isn't?
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I think I don't think I can really see myself pursuing a career in anything that doesn't have music involved with it. The closest thing I could see to actually implementing my economics degree is maybe something in the music business world. Or like the entertainment business world, but like I'd love to maybe manage artists, but I think in order to be able to be okay with managing artists, I have to first try it myself. Because I think if not for that, then I think I would totally just be jealous of the people I'm managing the whole time.
Okay.
So I would think like, oh, well, I wanted to do that.
That's interesting. Yeah. So do you see this experience as becoming an artist, YouTube sensation / musician as a stepping stone, a learning experience to when you can take yourself under your wing somewhere down the line?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I wholeheartedly plan on pursuing music to its fullest. I want to be my own artist. I want to be, a singer-songwriter. I want to be as big as I can be in that realm, and then bring other people up with me, which is actually kind of interesting. I've always kind of had the dream of being able to help my homies out if anyone's ever in need. So
has anyone taken you under their wing? Has anyone helped you out?
A little bit. I had a friend, I don't know if you know Tyler Ward. He's kind of a big YouTube musician, celebrity friend of mine. We went on tour back in 2015, and he kind of was an older brother figure, kind of telling me how it goes in this world. And it was cool being on tour with him, performing for a few hundred people every single night.
It seems particularly important because of how young the quote-unquote, I guess it's an industry. I was going to say quote-unquote industry, but no, it's an industry. And it's so young that the people who could be mentors are in their 20s, maybe early 30s.
It just depends on, like, I mean, I've seen people who were experts at, like, the YouTube sphere at, like, 21 years old. Specifically because you can kind of get started on YouTube, and that's kind of the beauty of it, is you can kind of get started whenever you want.
As a kid. There are kids who have YouTube channels who have tons of followers. It's scary.
Almost to a fault, though. I think it's probably kind of it might even be
creepy.
It's a little creepy. It's also probably not great to be that popular at that age.
Exactly.
You know?
Because that does mess with you.
Yeah, totally. It's the whole Justin Bieber thing. Honestly.
Oh, God, yeah. Well, every now and then you'll see a, like, Justin Bieber lookalike who has 500,000 followers, and all of his videos are his hair flipping or something like that, and you go, what's going on?
You can tell it's probably getting to his head. And I can imagine, even if I were, 14-year-old Danny, there's no way I could, like, if every girl my age, like, wanted me, which is kind of what Justin Bieber had to deal with, had to deal with.
And look what happened to him.
Like, there are definitely some negative psychologies to fame that people don't talk about. And I'm pretty adamant that I feel like you should probably not get, like, famous. Well, you can't, like, choose this, but, like, it'd be great if you weren't famous until at least, like, 18 plus,
Yeah.
Because I think when you're a kid, you just don't really, I think you're just born and raised thinking that the world kind of revolves around you. And it's not great, because I don't think you become, it's not a humbling experience whatsoever,
Yeah. So really quick, where can people find you? Where, if people want to, heard your blurb just now and went, oh, wow, I didn't know about this guy. Where do I find him?
YouTube.com/Danny Padilla, DANNYPADILLA. LLA. I said that too fast. Like the double L's in Spanish.
Don't worry, we'll be sure to put it in the description.
In the description, great. And then Instagram's Danny J Padilla, because I need to get rid of that J though.
What does it stand for?
Joseph is my middle name. Jose. But my mom was like, nope, we need it to be. My Mexican dad wanted Jose. My Norwegian mom wanted Joseph.
Is this an exclusive? Have you done this on any other interview? Have you already revealed your middle?
People might know my middle name, but they don't know the backstory of, like, my dad wanted.
Ooh, exclusive.
I know, exclusive.
Exclusive. For the gory days.
Yeah, for the gory days.
Awesome.
So it stands for Joseph. But yeah, I could have been a DJ all my life. Like, literally, my name could be DJ if I wanted it to be, but I just never chose to be. But yeah, Danny J Padilla, Danny Padilla on Twitter, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, YouTube's my main platform if you want to actually see what I look like and what I sound like and well, you know what I sound like, but stuff like that.
Yeah, but maybe what your singing voice sounds like.
Yeah, totally. Stuff like that.
And maybe what you look like when you're crying.
Yeah, and when I'm crying. Yeah, I've probably cried in a couple of videos on YouTube.
Or at least acting like you're crying.
Yeah.
Pretty convincing to me.
I know, yeah. I think I've cried once legitimately on YouTube, maybe twice. I don't know. Anyway.
So, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be delving into the movie that we watched this week, and then a little bit of our analysis, and finally, what we thought about it, our rating, when we come back to the Gory Days.
The Gory Days!
Welcome back to the Gory Days. Kyle Leone here, my guest, Danny Padilla, and the movie we watched this week was The Slumber Party Massacre. Is this the first time you'd seen this movie?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I haven't necessarily delved into my 80s film.
Yeah, wait, I'm sorry.
Well,
what's your relationship to horror? Do you like horror movies?
I do. I actually really enjoy horror movies. I usually watch the more modern stuff, but it was nice to actually kind of go back and see, what was considered, horror back then and scary back then, in particular, because obviously cinematography and filming and stuff is just so much more insane nowadays than it definitely was back then in the 80s as far as what they're able to do realistically and stuff like that. But I really actually enjoyed it. But
honestly, are you just finding things nice things to say?
I enjoyed it. I don't know. Do you usually slam all the movies that you
No,
watch?
I'm just asking. Like, if you really feel, old movies, but
I think horror is interesting because I think a lot of it is how you, like, is how realistic you can make it seem, or how, because you have to kind of be able to actually scare people, with the film itself. And whereas, like, I think movies like 80s movies like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where it's like something where you don't I think it's easier to portray what's going on, and you don't have that, because I don't know, I feel like horror movies kind of revolve around being able to scare the audience member, but also have a storyline as well. Sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes, yeah.
So what makes a horror movie scary to you?
I don't know. I mean, obviously jump scares are kind of a thing, but I think in particular...
it's like specifically to Danny.
Oh, to me specifically. I really... Anything that's kind of about, like, spirits and ghosts and stuff, like, I kind of have a hard time... I don't know, my brain does this thing where I can't always decipher... between like reality and what I've seen in films and stuff. So I think anytime like for example like Paranormal Activity, I can't hang with Paranormal Activity because it's way too close to home. There are a lot of films like The Conjuring and stuff like that where they exist in places where I totally wouldn't visit. So it's kind of a little bit less like I would actually experience this in real life. Like, oh yes, like a clearly haunted house in the middle of Virginia.
Yeah, like the Amityville Horror,
forest.
where it's a very specific location, or Hostel, where it's Eastern Europe. I'm not in Eastern Europe. I'm safe.
Totally, yeah. Whereas Paranormal Activity really got to me because it was in a bunch of suburban homes.
It was in like Ojai.
Yeah, and like it was just way more, and the fact that they used actual cameras or like security cameras and stuff like that. Got to me a lot more. I think I actually realized this recently, but anytime there's an actual villain, I personally enjoy when the villain doesn't talk. I think specifically because I find it way less scary when they actually start talking.
You must have enjoyed most of this villain.
Yeah. He doesn't talk until the very end.
Right.
Some weird stuff.
Yeah, then he gets really weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
But overall, I really, really, really love horror movies.
But spirits, supernatural. That's
specifically supernatural for some reason. Because I kind of have like I'm kind of on the fence about whether or not I like believe in supernatural, and like I'm waiting for like a moment in which I actually like get a yes or a no. I'm almost like a agnostic.
Okay.
Yeah. And what I was gonna mention earlier is that I visited last night with a friend the Devil's Gate, which ties into horror because basically it scared the shit out of me. But basically, it's a place in Pasadena where it's an actual gate that they call the Devil's Gate because there's a rock sculpture kind of next to it that almost looks like Satan's face.
Oh my god!
Or Satan's head almost, and the gate itself looks terrifying. But it's something that apparently people try and visit at night. But apparently there have been a lot of Satanist culture or like Satanist like rituals being held at this gate and stuff like that. And people who just hike down there sometimes like stumble upon these rituals, which is really interesting. Like they do sacrifices down there and stuff.
Did
like
you see anything?
No. We like got way too freaked out because there was nobody around, and it was one of the first like the few moments in life where I've ever felt like I was being watched.
Oh god!
Which is like it was actually terrifying. Like no one was around. Well,
it was
no
pitch
one
black,
was
right?
around, quote unquote. Yeah, it was pitch black. All we had was one headlamp, and I was trying to vlog it, I brought my camera around, and it was actually unbelievably terrifying. We didn't get quite up next to the gate, and I think I would have actually just straight up shit myself if I was next to it. Like because I think that would have been I would have found a reason to think that there were like it was haunted or there were spirits or whatever there. But yeah, I mean that like freaked me the hell out. But I'm planning on going back during the day though.
Are you religious? If you don't mind me asking?
I identify as Christian, which I thought was why I think it was a little bit more interesting for me to actually see what a lot of people actually consider to be a gate to hell.
Yeah.
Or people actually tried to like create a portal to hell within this gate.
I would have guessed that or Catholic.
Yeah. I was actually born and raised a mixture of both, like Lutheran and Catholic.
Oh, okay. So a healthy fear of God.
Yeah. My mom was Lutheran, my dad was Catholic, but I went to Catholic school K through 8, so I kind of was born and raised in that. I'm a little bit more non-denominational now, I would say. Like I don't really like identifying with either of those.
Okay, but would you say that played a part in your fear of the spirits?
Yeah, because I definitely I think going hand in hand with like believing in God, you also believe in Satan. So like
it's definitely the adolescent mind's impulse to
Yeah, totally. And I think like it also tied in with the fact that I think it reminded me a lot of certain horror movies, and I definitely was kind of like, okay, this could be haunted. I don't want to, because I also didn't want to affect like how well I was going to sleep that night.
Yeah,
that happens sometimes. Like Paranormal Activity, I couldn't sleep afterward.
Okay.
Which I think some people probably will listen to this and be like, haha, idiot. Like, you got scared from Paranormal
Oh my
Activity?
god, are you kidding? Well, it's funny. You bring up an interesting point about what I love about 80s horror and older horror is being able to, there's multiple things, but one of the big things is that I love to visually see what other horror movies took, what they built off of. It's so fascinating to see, like in I wish I had a good example. I don't know, in Child's Play 1988 when the first act of the film is kind of held up as, is the doll alive or is it Andy, the little boy, who's really doing these murders and things?
Yeah.
And then by the second act it's completely affirmed that it's the doll that's alive.
Yeah.
But to see the idea, it's like, ooh, who's the real murderer? Is it the person, or is it the, like how Annabelle takes that, or how I don't know. It's just, I find it fascinating to be able to watch a movie and go, oh, that's what X, Y, and Z came from. That's what started this.
Yeah, totally.
So to hear you talk about people who might hear this and go, haha, you got scared by Paranormal Activity,
yeah.
because I think that was 2008.
Something like that.
I think
yeah.
Obama had just been voted. And yeah, so we had an ironic president in the office, and people felt a little safer in their homes.
Yeah.
So it was much easier to scare people by just moving a door ajar. Yeah, no, that Paranormal Activity has a very special place in my heart as one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. And I saw that at Ivy Theater with all those other people for the first time.
Really?
And I remember people in that theater being really loud and vocal in the beginning, and then silent once it really hit the wall. Anyway, we watched the Slumber Party Massacre, and before we get into the recap really quick, I just want to talk about some of the history that was going on. So, the Slumber Party Massacre was screened in Fort Lauderdale, Florida in March 1982, later premiered here in LA on Friday, September 10th, 1982, before it was given a limited release by New World Pictures on Friday, November 12th, 1982.
Great.
So, what I found interesting about this is a movie all about scantily clad women in a sleepover getting drilled by an extremely phallic drill was written by a woman. And directed by a woman.
Yeah, and I was actually I was interested by that.
Yeah, the director, Amy Holden Jones, and the writer, a feminist, Rita Mae Brown. I found out that Rita Mae Brown wrote the original screenplay, titled it Sleepless Nights, as a parody. But when she submitted it, the producers didn't understand that it was a joke, so they repurposed it to make a serious slasher, as though it weren't a parody, against her wishes, and retitled it Slumber Party Massacre.
Dang, and she had to direct that.
Really interesting. Her friend Amy Holden Jones, directed it. But still, it's so funny that somebody told Rita Mae Brown sat down to write a feminist mirror to the slasher genre, and the producers didn't get it. So like some of the humor and like the nude scenes and things, we'll get into it, but it's just from a feminist perspective, it's fascinating. And this is of course coming from two men, so I apologize in advance, but I don't know, I think it's still important to talk about whether or not we have the right perspective.
Sure.
So a little bit on the director, Amy Holden Jones, I have a little blurb about here. She was a film editor at the time. She wanted to direct and asked Francis Dole for advice. Dole, being a producer, gave Jones a number of scripts. She was given 2 opportunities: direct this movie, Slumber Party Massacre, or edit Steven Spielberg's upcoming film, E.T., the Extraterrestrial. She chose to direct her first film.
Oh, no.
And tweak the script that would later become the Slumber Party Massacre, then going by the title Don't Open the Door, and decided to film the first 3 scenes with her husband for $1,000. When she brought those 3 scenes made on $1,000 to the producer, Roger Corman, he was so impressed he asked her to make the movie.
Wow.
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't recognize her name, but you know whose name I do recognize? Steven Spielberg.
So she just chose to not get on a big budget film.
I mean, good for you. It's what you wanted. You wanted to be a director. You got it.
Yeah.
Maybe you should have been the editor on E.T.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I don't know. What do you think when you hear a story like that in Hollywood? We live here now.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I feel like that happens more than you'd think, or at least like there are a lot of scenarios in which people could have made like a slightly different choice and their career could have ended up completely differently, you know. And I mean, who's to say that editing on a thing like E.T. would have really given... Yeah, but I don't know. I mean,
that's true, because I don't know the editor for E.T., whoever it was.
Yeah,
maybe somebody out there knows it. Maybe they'll tweet at me.
Right. Maybe they probably got a lot more work, though. Well, most definitely got more work.
I think so. I think so. When Steven Spielberg was standing over your shoulder while you were editing E.T., which I'm pretty sure got like Academy nominations and things at the time.
I can imagine. It was a huge film.
Yeah. So I found it interesting that this movie inspired 2 sequels. The Slumber Party Massacre 2 was made in 1987 by, once again, a woman. Deborah Brock wrote and directed Slumber Party Massacre 2. Then Slumber Party Massacre 3 happened in 1990, was written by Bruce Carson, a man, and Sally Madison directed it.
Okay.
And I was also interested to find out that this movie takes place in the same universe as Sorority House Massacre, which is on my list of movies to watch. It's also on Amazon. I noticed it was the others, but I was like, okay. I don't know if anything happens in Sorority House that ties into this. Maybe it's the same town or the same high school or something.
Can't be the same killer. Spoiler alert.
Finally, did you see the poster?
Yes. Yeah. Well, or at least like I saw it when I was about to watch the film. Yeah. But I didn't look too in depth at it.
Only one of the actresses in the movie is actually on the poster. Jackie,
Really?
I forgot her name, but the black woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's the only one that's actually on the
Really?
poster. None of the other women were actually in the movie.
Oh
yeah.
my gosh, what?
And I think it's funny because the poster, if you haven't seen it, I'll make sure it's the image on SoundCloud, but if you're on the Apple Podcast app, go over to soundcloud.com/thegorydays and check out this poster where we see 4 scantily clad women crouched down. I think they're tied up, and a disembodied headless man where his legs are spread in front of them and he's holding his drill as a clear phallic symbol.
Yeah.
That's the poster with a couple of taglines adorning it, one including, "You bring the pizza, I'll bring the drill. Close your eyes for a second and sleep forever." And my personal favorite, "The ultimate driller killer thriller."
Nice. Nice.
So this is my second favorite part of the podcast, where we go a little bit into the recap of what happened in this movie. Let's go for it. What the heck happens at the beginning?
Oh man.
First thing we see is Trish cleaning up her room. She's taking a box full of like dolls and things like that, and she's emptying it out while a radio is playing on the radio is playing a news broadcast about Russ Thorne, mass murderer, killer of 5, who. And she like turns it off because it's annoying. Yeah. There's a few moments of that where it's like the news is trying to give people information and they just turn it off or they ignore it or something. I feel like that's a trope in horror movies. And it's, in my opinion, definitely some of the like parody stuff that Rita Mae Brown was trying to get forward. Because it's the idea that the universe is trying to help you guys and you're being obstinate airheads about it. Totally. So the whole thing is that her parents are leaving. Trish Devereaux and her mom Annette and dad Mr. Devereaux are leaving for the weekend. And Trish is going to throw a slumber party for all of her friends. And Mr. Contant, weird name, is her neighbor, weird guy,
weird dude.
who's offered to watch her, even though she's like maybe 16.
Totally. They also look like way older than high schoolers too.
Oh, that's a great thing too. In all these movies that I watch, the high schoolers are always like in their 30s or something.
It's so interesting, like fully developed like females. That's a weird adjective for that.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't even think about that.
Like they were just like it's just.
I've established this on the podcast before. I am a gay man, so I don't notice some things and respond to certain things. So you're right. They were all fully formed in a way that maybe high school 14 to 17-year-old women shouldn't be.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So she throws one of her Barbies in the garbage. Her parents drive off, and then a mysterious man picks the Barbie out of the garbage. What did you think? I thought it was Mr. Contant.
I know, I thought it was Mr. Creepy Dude. Also, because I didn't really see how that would tie into someone like being a killer, I guess. But yeah, I totally thought it was Mr. Contant, the weird dude. Because I think in addition to the radio, there's the paper boy. He throws one of the newspapers that says "Mass Murderer of 5 escapes mental asylum" or whatever. Then we get a shot of the 2 boys in this movie, Jeff and Neil, as they're walking around, and they see a phone repair woman. Or rather, they see her ass. Yeah, they see her ass, and that's it.
Full, just like screen is full of her ass. And like they're watching her as she comes down, and she's like kind of into it and thinks it's funny. Is she not an adult? A full-grown adult phone employee with these high school boys?
Yeah, high school 30-year-olds.
That are like joking, hitting on her and things. And then I love this. The first death is she goes over to her van. The door opens up and she just gets scooped up as the boys are walking away, and she's like banging on the door. And my favorite guest on the podcast, Derek, pointed out that is that van soundproof?
All the places in the entire like everything seemed completely soundproof. Like the garage was perfectly soundproof. All that stuff. I guess they couldn't hear whatsoever.
Then we skip to basketball. It's it's not a team really. It's just gym
like
class.
PE,
it's PE. And so they're, instead of doing shirts versus skins, they're all on the same team and they're just playing basketball. And the high school boys are saying like, "Ooh, check out Valerie and things." And
the
there's
new girl.
Did you ever do that?
No.
Like, this is a thing in movies a lot where it's like, hey, me and my horny friend, we're going to go crash the basketball practice, and we're going to hide out in the bleachers and watch them.
You're totally not allowed to do that.
No.
Also, like, they don't really have like a guy's PE and a girl's PE. I don't think either. Like, they don't. I don't
Not
think
anymore.
They really split it up.
Yeah, that's funny too. Because when did that could go out of fashion?
I don't know. Yeah.
Because like in Carrie, she's definitely in an all girls PE class, and there's some other movies where it's like all girls.
Yeah.
Huh.
Maybe that's the thing in the 80s, because they also had that in Stranger Things, I think, too.
Oh,
where it was,
really?
like an all guys PE class.
Maybe.
Doing basketball with all guys.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. That's
Well,
interesting.
I mean, in this day and age, there's still, of course, the boys and girls locker rooms,
Sure,
but then after that, you do kind of mix with everybody.
You
Yeah.
kinda commingle. They don't really.
At least from what I remember of high school.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
I don't know if
did
it's different
marching
now.
band, though, so,
It's 2017. Maybe, I don't know. We have to be co-ed. We have to be okay with everything.
Yeah, totally.
Then they go to that infamous shower scene.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I had to be reminded that this was directed by a woman because there are some long, lingering shots of just like, there's the chest, pew, there's the butt, and then boo, back up. One long cut. It was nuts. But did you notice what they're talking about?
Weren't they like talking about each other's tits for a second, and then they were also talking about?
There's one joke about like, oh, I think your tits are bigger. When I was like, who, me? And they all make a little joke. But then immediately 180 to talking about each other's like basketball stats. Like they're talking about each other's skills and saying like, hey, remind me not to pass to Jackie. She's a ball hog. Oh, you were pretty good today. They're all kind of ignoring Trish and they're all kind of ignoring Valerie, the new girl. And so Trish, our main character, goes over and says, hey, you played really good basketball today. So it's something weird like that. But I found that fascinating, that this scene, like, is like Porky's. You know, they should be all sudsing each other up and giggling and doing all kinds of stuff. But in actuality, they were just bathing. There wasn't really anything sexual about it, even though the women there were naked. Yeah.
And like the shots would almost lead you to think that, like the way that they shot it would almost lead you to think that it was going to be more sexualized.
Oh, I mean, it's 100% male gaze. Like, this is what women look like to men. When this is what women look like. They're talking to each other. This is what they sound like.
About pretty normal stuff.
I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I thought it was the most obvious example of the producers not really understanding that this was a feminist parody.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
We get out of the shower scene, and they have a little locker room conversation where Trish decides that she wants to invite Valerie, but the other girls, whose names are Jackie, Diane, and Linda. No. Jackie, Diane...
Which one's the blonde one?
And Kim.
Okay.
Jackie, Diane, and Kim are like, no, she's the new girl. She's too weird. And Valerie hears it.
Oh no.
So when Trish goes over and says, hey, Valerie, I'm having a sleepover, she's like, oh, no, thank you. And Trish is like, she heard. Super awkward.
I think it's hilarious that they didn't assume that she heard when she was probably like 15 feet away when she walked over and was like, hey, we're having a sleepover. It's like, no, I mean, y'all definitely were.
I was really worried she was going to say like, what did I do? Like, she really didn't know, but then she's like, she heard. Good. You're not an idiot. She did hear.
I was actually really glad to hear
They're
that.
There's just tiny little things like that. But these women aren't complete idiots, really. Like, it's not the scary movie trope of safety, danger, run to danger, gun, banana, grab the banana.
We should split up.
There wasn't anything really like that. It was just kind of a shitty situation that all these girls found themselves in.
Totally, yeah.
So when they're leaving the shower, they all they meet up with their friend Linda, and they walk past a dumpster. In that dumpster is the phone woman, dead. Totally they totally miss it, don't see it. And I'm pretty sure that's a joke.
Yeah.
Did you laugh?
No.
I couldn't even tell.
Not at all.
They show them walking, and then they do this close-up shot of the woman in the dumpster, and I was like, oh, wait, where was she? Because I didn't see her either.
Right, yeah.
Anyway, one of the girls had to stick around behind. Linda, she's the one that had to get some books or something.
Yeah, she had like an exam the next day or something, and she needed to go get some stuff.
So she goes back inside. The Coach Jana, says, okay, they're locking up. So Coach Jana leaves. Linda's locked inside. The drill man, Russ Thorne, who has been named multiple times by now. It's so crazy. They give him Russ Thorne.
Yeah.
Goes inside and drills her arm at first. She gets away. he chases her a little bit. She's in a tiny little room. He sees the blood seeping under the door, and that's when he gets her.
Yeah.
And then he hops back into his phone van and drives away.
Yeah. I thought it was so interesting that he was just so unsuccessful with her, I guess, somehow. Like, how did he... It seemed like every other situation, he did a pretty good job of just straight up getting a drill through their head.
Yeah.
But, like, for some reason, he missed and got
Whoops.
her arm this time, yeah. Even
And
though, she had no idea.
And it's, like, in the school. So
Yeah.
what I'm confused is, like, what happens in the next day or
Yeah.
hour? Because that's a crime scene. People
Yeah,
are going to
yeah.
find her in that school. There's probably blood trails
Yeah,
where she
yeah.
went. So the rest of the movie must take place over like the rest of that same night.
Same night, yeah.
Because then finally we get back to the house,
Yeah.
and we find out a coincidence.
Yeah.
Valerie lives next door.
Yeah. Perfect coincidence.
She
yeah.
lives next door to Trish, where the slumber party is going to be happening. And Valerie has a little sister. She seems little,
Yeah,
at least she
yeah,
acts that
Courtney,
way.
yeah, I don't know,
But she
yeah.
looks the same age, if not older.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
supposed to be 14, I think. But yeah, Courtney.
Yeah.
So we've got Valerie and Courtney are next door, while the slumber party is starting with Trish, Jackie, Kim, and Diane. So I love this when they first show up. Oh, well, we also see Miss Jana's house, where
Yeah,
there's like
yeah.
a fake scare of the drill popping through the door.
Yeah,
God,
yeah.
I hate...
Creating the peephole.
Yeah. Okay. So I found out on IMDb that was actually one of the set designers playing Pam, the drill person who's
Yeah.
making her peephole for her. What do you think about movies misusing jumps? Okay. No, I don't want to. That seems too loaded. What do you think about movies using jump scares as jokes?
Okay. So almost like well, so for that one in particular,
Drill.
Yeah, it was just a nice little. I mean, I think it's. I enjoy it because I think it's a nice little like, oh, okay, good, sort of moment. But I think it's a good way to obviously keep you on your toes without having to actually like escalate the movie like right away, because I think you want to kind of continuously keep people on edge, but without actually having to. I don't know. Like, I think obviously at that point there was no reason to actually get the murdering started already. But,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I agree with you.
yeah,
I used
yeah.
to think that it was supposed to be like a visual reminder that of
Yeah.
the drill.
Yeah,
It's like, hey,
yeah.
don't forget,
Don't
there's
forget, yeah.
drill as a theme in
That makes
this.
sense, yeah,
Yeah, but I don't know. Unless a movie is using it to that effect to keep the idea or some kind of theme in mind.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, there's one just really terrible one in Saw 2. Saw
Okay,
2, I
yeah.
love Saw 2,
Yeah.
but one of these, there's one scare in it that's completely fake. It's just when one character goes, hey, come here, I found something. It's like, God, when you're watching a horror movie and someone comes down the stairs and goes,
Yeah.
you forgot your wallet. Hey, you forgot your hat. It's
Yeah,
like, oh my
yeah.
God,
Yeah.
yeah.
They're just
I think
trying to,
I think
remind you-
SNL did a parody sketch on that,
Yeah,
where
yeah,
it
I
just
can
keeps
imagine.
escalating.
Yeah. I think it's just to remind you that you're in a horror movie. Because I think sometimes, obviously, if you keep it without any sort of anxiety like that, then I think like it removes you too much from the fact that you're supposed to be on edge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I
that's a
get
good
that,
point.
Yeah.
Huh.
Like they have to, remind you. Because I found so many times where they get so much into like the backstory of the beginning of the film, where it's all nice and it's cute.
Yeah,
like,
and
there's
everything's
even, like,
happy.
Romantic situations sometimes, and then like you totally forget that you're watching a horror film.
Until somebody dies.
Yeah. Right.
So when they first show up to when Trish is first at the house with Mr. Contant, her friends Diane, Jackie, and Kim show up with beer, alcohol,
Yeah.
and weed.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
rolls down like a little baggie of weed,
Yeah.
marijuana, and I thought it was pretty interesting to find to see a rare instance of marijuana being portrayed somewhat realistically.
Yeah.
As it's not like a pound bag that she
Yeah,
has.
right.
It's like a tiny little Ziploc with like a tiny little
Yeah,
hair
yeah.
of weed at the
I didn't
bottom.
think about that. Yeah, it was actually a weirdly realistic portrayal of how marijuana is used.
Yeah, it's like, hey,
rather
I
than-
got weed, this
Yeah.
tiny little bit.
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
make like one joint with it and they
Yeah.
smoke it and they don't go, whoa, I'm
Yeah,
seeing
yeah.
elephants
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah.
They just kind of talk about boys and kind of keep their heads on themselves and they don't really even act stoned,
Yeah,
really. I don't
totally.
know.
Yeah.
I don't
think
know.
about that, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so
cool.
I didn't know what to think about that,
Right,
though. I didn't
right.
know if that was an example of the producers not realizing or if it was Rita Mae Brown. This kept happening to me. Whenever
Mm-hmm.
something weird like that would happen in the story, it would be, I can't tell if this was Rita Mae Brown intentionally lampooning something, or if this was the producers not getting that she was lampooning something because it's only in the writing. Another situation really threw me for a loop that we're getting to pretty quick, but what I wanted to talk about is that Mr. Contant is cool.
Yeah, he's a cool dude. I won't tell anyone about your weed if you don't tell anyone about me scaring you.
Which is weird.
Yeah,
he manages to re-creepify himself.
I know, yeah. He's just trying to, like now he has some sort of leverage on them so that they
and
don't,
I thought it was his house, but no, he lives next door. He was just staying over watching her for a little bit, and now he's going to go outside and do something else, which we'll talk about. I love what he goes outside to do, but first, Jeff and Neil have made their way to the slumber party, and they're peeping toms. They're watching the girls smoke joints, and they're watching them get changed into their pajamas and things like that. Once again, not really. They're not pillow fighting. They're not practicing making out. They're not comparing boob sizes. They're talking about boys. Yeah. Which may or may not be a feminist thing. Right. I don't know. Women can talk about boys. Yeah. It doesn't pass the Bechdel test, but... Yeah. Have you heard of that?
No, but like...
Oh, the Bechdel test? No. Oh, the Bechdel test was made by Alison Bechdel, a sociologist/feminist who's still alive. Okay. Who, in any work of fiction, if any two female characters both have names, exchange 2 lines of dialogue not about a man.
Wow.
That's the Bechdel test.
Okay.
In fact, there's an amazing podcast about it called the Bechdel Cast that I highly encourage you and all of my listeners to listen to, because they look at movies strictly through the lens of their portrayal of women. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And so you'd be really surprised what passes and what doesn't pass. Yeah. Movies like Shrek pass, and movies like The Phantom of the Opera do not. So, yeah, you'd be surprised.
That's weird, yeah. That's insane.
So, let's see. The lights go out. Oh, wait, I forgot. Diane has a boyfriend that we met before, John Miner, who gets a full name. He's one of those people that get, like, Russ Thorne gets a full name.
Those are the only 2 people, I think, in the entire film who have full names.
I think so. He's kind of a bimbo. He's not that important. He's going to die later. That's the only reason I bring him up now. So Diane goes outside, and she sees Mr. Contant, and he's got a cleaver in his hand, because she saw, because he's outside chopping snails.
Yeah.
This is the best way to take, this is the only way to take care of them, he says, is to go around with a meat cleaver chopping them. Yeah. And as soon as he sees one more, he's about to chop it, but then it gets drilled, and that's our 3rd death. Yeah. I figured the best way to run through this movie at this point is to just go death by death. Yeah. Because then Diane... John pulls up in his car and says, "Hey, let's go." And Diane says, "I can't. Pull in the garage." So they make out in the garage for a little bit, and John convinces Diane, "Hey, let's go to my place." Yeah. So Diane goes inside to tell the girls, "We're going to go get beer." And when she comes back to make out with John, his head falls off. And she tries to run out, but inside the garage is Russ Thorne, and he gets her. Yeah. So that's our 1, 2, 3... 4th and 5th death. Yeah. At this point, the girls have decided to order some pizza. They order some pizza. Right. Meanwhile, at Valerie and Courtney's house, they've been hearing some car horn honking. They've been hearing some screaming. Valerie tells her sister Courtney it's nothing to worry about. Just go upstairs. I'm going to watch some TV. Courtney goes upstairs and reads Playgirl. Yeah. This 14-year-old goes up and closes her door and opens up some porn and enjoys it, and they even like enjoy it together later when they're like reading the stories when Valerie catches her with it. Right. What did you think of that?
Oh, I mean, maybe girls at that age kind of had the same sort of questions that guys do at that age, so I don't know. I mean, like it's interesting that they actually brought that up, though, or that was like a kind of thing that the little 14-year-old girl or whatever old Courtney is was
14
actually, like, thinking about.
No, it was important for me to find out. She is 14, and she has access to porn and enjoys it. Yeah.
No, that's, I mean, yeah, no, I think it was weird about them kind of bonding about it, though, because it seemed like they were pretty, like, Valerie was pretty not interested in telling Courtney about anything else that was going on or about her own personal stuff, but then they somehow were
just a little bit closer to your face. There you go. No worries.
But it seemed like they were kind of but for some reason, I guess she just felt like she wanted to bond over Playgirl, or I don't know, like...
This was one of those instances where I felt this was 100% a feminist perspective, and the producers just not getting it at all. The idea that, women are sexual beings. Women enjoy looking at men and Playgirl exists. There were people who enjoyed that. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
And in actuality, there isn't that big a deal. It's not even thrown up as Valerie coming in and going, what are you looking at? Like, what is all this?
Yeah.
And so in an article that I read on bitch.com, a very popular feminist article source talked about how this was I don't have the quote, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but the idea that this was an example of the male gaze in the woman's command. So in the first half of the film, we see a lot of women's bodies from the male gaze. Valerie and Courtney don't fall in line with a lot of the other things that the other girls do. Trish has a pink frilly room. She has Barbies that she's getting rid of. I keep saying Valerie. Yeah. Courtney's room is like dark. Yeah. It's pretty much just the bed. We don't see anything else except for that and her like stack of Playgirls and things like that. Yeah. Courtney has agency to go toward the killer and investigate things like that. They are basically, to use the sexist term, they are the male impetus in this, but they're the females. Yeah. So I found that fascinating, that this was a visual representation of the male gaze in woman's control. Like, this is the woman's gaze. Yeah.
That's interesting. I definitely didn't think about that, but it makes sense now that I look back at it, definitely.
So Courtney hears the honking and screaming, and she goes over to investigate. Valerie realizes that Courtney's gone, and she follows her. And then the pizza arrives, and the pizza guy gets there, and his eyes are gone, and he falls flat. And they're like, "Oh my god!" And that's when they finally realize something's not right, and they start running around. They try to call that's right. They don't call the police. They call their coach. They call Coach Jana, say there's something wrong, and then the line gets cut. And then Miss Jana calls Valerie, and and that's when they say, "Hey, you should go check it out. I'm going to go over myself." And so Miss Jen is on her way, Valerie's on her way, Courtney's on her way. Everyone's coming to the house. Russ Thorne may or may not already be there because the pizza guy just got his eyes drilled out. That's when Jeff and Neil decide to split up. So this I think calls back to what you were talking about, because it's what kills them. If they had stuck together, they probably would have survived. Totally. But they decide, knowingly, one of us will die. You will go to Mr. Contan's house, and I'll go to Valerie's house. And so when they split up, Russ Thorne gets one of them, and the other one that went to Valerie's house is banging on the door, and Valerie can't hear her because she's listening to a movie. I guess she hasn't left yet. She can't hear. And it's kind of funny because it's like the action in the movie is reflecting what's happening in real life. I think there's a film term for that, but...
I don't know.
Visual irony? I don't know.
Or some sort of parallel. Definitely.
But he gets stabbed to death. And then a pretty funny shot of Russ Thorne carrying the body back to a trunk. A different trunk than the telephone van. Where he's
like a car trunk.
Stuffing the bodies in.
That honestly... them, which is interesting. And he was counting
He
them,
counts
too.
them and realizes
like,
one's missing. And that was Jeff, who's crawling away, trying to get back to the house. And I think the girls inside the house witness him die, like through the window, I think. Like he's going like, help.
Or I think he's like at the door, like kind of clawing at it, and they think that it's Russ.
Okay.
And they're like, we should, what if it's one of them? And they're like, no.
No, that's right. Because then what happens is, Valerie and Courtney get to the door. Courtney sees Valerie before Valerie sees Courtney, and Courtney hides. Valerie gets to the front door and knocks on it. When she doesn't hear anything, she leaves. Inside the house, Jackie says, "We need to open the door. It's help." She opens the door, and Russ Thorne slices her throat
with a drill,
and she dies. I forgot to mention, before Jackie died, while they were still inside the house, Jackie was really hungry. So she has this wonderful line about the pizza's guys. He's dead. He's cold. Is the pizza? So then she proceeds to take the pizza out of his dead hands and then put it on his dead body
and eat from it
and eat the pizza off of it.
It's a good like comedic relief in the middle of a really, really gnarly
situation. Once again, like not really played comedically or even set up comedically. But it is really funny.
It is.
So that's how Jackie dies. She gets her throat slit, and that's what makes them afraid to listen to Valerie anymore, because one of them Kim says to Trish, "We gotta go help Valerie," and Trish says, What if she's helping the killer?
Yeah.
Valerie is the new girl. We don't really
Yeah.
know a lot about her. And she did just knock on the door, and then Russ killed Jackie.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty smart.
Yeah.
It was Trish taking information and learning from it.
Right.
And making informed decisions based on it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to comment also on rerunning for like a hot second. I thought it was really interesting when the guys go up to the door, when the pizza guy's at the door, and they say, all right, what's the damage so far? And then through the door he says 6 so far, or
I
something
loved
like
that.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting, kind of like,
Once again, a joke?
yeah, like a joke, or at least kind of a like, I don't
Dark
know, yeah,
comedy?
it was a really funny moment, or just like oh, like that was interesting. Like I also thought like, okay, 6.
I started
Was it
counting.
6? Yeah,
And
yeah.
it was 6.
It was 6.
It was 5, and I was like,
And
what?
then the pizza guy.
And the pizza guy's there. Yeah, I was like, ah.
Yeah, that's a nice little like, you know what's up. Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah, it's cool.
So yeah, Jeff and Neil die, Jackie dies, Kim and Trish are holed up in her room with some knives. The killer gets Kim. That's when Miss Jana, Coach Jana, arrives, because what happens is Russ Thorne kills Kim, goes downstairs, lays down, and covers himself in a tarp.
Yeah.
So weird.
Yeah.
I was like, what is he doing?
Yeah.
And it works.
Yeah, right.
Because Coach Jana comes in and immediately goes for the body covered under a tarp.
Yeah.
And it's him, and oh no, they have a fight. One of them with a fire poker, but I'm pretty sure before that, Miss Jana, Coach Jana, opens up the refrigerator, and Kim falls out.
Oh, is that what happened?
I
Did
think
they
so.
hide him in a fridge?
Well,
Or
that's
her in
the
a fridge?
thing. It's an actual plot hole, because Russ Thorne stabs Kim upstairs in Trish's room, then goes downstairs and covers himself in the sheet.
Yeah.
Kim somehow got stuffed into the refrigerator
Right,
at that
right.
point.
Ooh.
So-
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense that he was able
right.
to do that in the amount of time. So anyway, this final fight between Miss Jana and Coach Jana and Russ. Coach Jana has a fire poker. Russ Thorne has his drill. They're going nuts. Eventually, Trish, who was hiding under the couch, like pulls his foot or something, and that's what gives Jana the upper hand to bonk him on the head with the fire poker.
Yeah.
How do they end up outside at the pool?
Oh, how did they end up outside? I was also gonna say there was also that moment too where I think it was Trish was hiding in like the closet.
That's
or, like,
right,
in
and
her,
she
like,
stabs
clothes.
him.
Yeah.
So she gets one good stab in the
Yeah.
back. Coach Jana bonks him. I guess they just run out to the pool. Man, I feel bad. I always have a really hard time remember the ends of these movies.
I think he gets like knocked out, but then no, they're still like inside when he gets like knocked out, because then he just like immediately like wakes back up.
That's right, and like he's still got the knife in his back or something. He comes all the way outside, and basically Valerie comes down. Valerie has been hiding out in the house. She was in the basement where she found a machete.
Yeah.
So she takes the machete, comes up from the basement, runs at Russ Thorne, who has his drill like he's going to swat at her like a sword or something, and she chops it in half.
Yeah.
Thus castrating Russ Thorne. Another interesting thing I read from Bitch.
Right.
Is the idea that he's being essentially emasculated right there. And right before he did that, right before Valerie came out to chop off his drill bit, Russ Thorne speaks for the first and only time. Do you remember what he says?
Something about
really
her, like,
creepy.
Wanting it too, right? Or like you want this.
He says, all of you were very pretty. I love you. You know you want it. You'll love it. It takes a lot of love for me to do this.
Oh my gosh.
Just putting the goddamn icing on the cake.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
For like who this guy represents.
Yeah, totally.
He represents the kind of guy who can't keep it in his pants.
Yeah, totally.
Who's whipping it out and smacking girls with it at the club, and is just being an absolute arrogant male chauvinist.
Totally.
Yeah. And so he gets the absolute punishment for that.
Right.
Gets his drill bit cut off, and then
hand too, right?
That's right. He gets his hand cut off with the machete, his drill bit cut off, and then he, gosh, I can't remember the first. There's like a fake death.
Yeah.
Well,
he
is it just the hand getting cut off?
Well, he falls into the pool, right?
That's like, does he fall in twice? Because
I thought he only falls in once and then he comes out and then, I don't.
Because oh god, I feel terrible about this. Whatever. Anyway, Russ Thorn, there's a big fight, and Russ Thorn goes down, and they're all like, "Oh, we made it." But one more big scare. Russ Thorn's still alive. He lunges at Trish. Trish has the machete, or maybe Valerie. I don't even freaking remember at this point. But he gets impaled on the machete, and then stands up, falls back into the pool, and all the blood fills that pool, which apparently ruined it. The pool that they filmed in.
Oh, really?
And the actor Michael Villela, the guy who played Russ Thorn, didn't know how to swim, and that pool was freezing. Wow. So he hated having to do that.
Yeah, I can imagine. Wow. Okay.
So that's the movie of. Okay, and then the final shot is Trish, Valerie, and Courtney hugging each other while sirens are heard in the background. Yeah. And it sounds like finally something's going to be done about all of this.
Yeah.
So that's the movie of the Slumber Party Massacre, a 1982 feminist just I don't know what I want to say about this.
But like lost in translation because the like male producers were like, no, what? No.
Well, that's what I want to talk about. A little bit of our analysis. I want to talk about like the climate that we're in right now. Sure. I'm sure you've read about it. I'm sure it's hard to avoid at this point. The Harvey Weinsteins, the Kevin Spaceys, the Louis C.K.'s, the rest of them. Yeah. And it's not just relegated to this industry, but this podcast is. So I want to stick to this industry as we talk about the relationship between men in power and women, period. Especially in these movies. I don't know. You come from a YouTube world. Has it pervaded anything?
Pervaded. What is the definition of pervaded?
Like permeated. Has it infected the YouTube scape?
I find that YouTube is a little bit more. I would say no, and not for the most part. I think like there are a couple of scenarios, and they usually get exposed real quick when there are people who do take advantage of women or things like that. Like there have been certain guys who've used their YouTube celebrity to get with girls, but then also kind of take advantage of them a little bit, which is definitely not great. But I think for the most part, YouTube's like a very politically correct, very I don't know. That stuff doesn't really happen. When it does, everyone hops on the train of exposing these people.
Because that's what it takes at the end. It takes a pressure. It takes an amount of people larger than their power can withstand. Totally. Something to overwhelm just like a peer pressure mentality.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I want to say it's a shame that that's what it takes, because at least it takes something now.
Yeah, right.
Once upon a time, it didn't seem like anything would stop it.
Yeah, definitely.
So this movie is unique. Some of the other movies that I've watched for this podcast, I've found out that, like for instance, I believe, was it Pumpkinhead or maybe Chopping Mall? One of those other movies. I think it was Chopping Mall. These are great names.
I love Chopping Mall.
Chopping Mall was pretty great. Yes, it was good. Chopping Mall. Chopping Mall was directed by Jim Wynorski.
All right.
Jim Wynorski, who also, it's funny, he has his fingers in every pie, who also directed Sorority House Massacre 2, which takes place in this realm.
Yeah.
Created Chopping Mall and wrote Chopping Mall just basically to date and have sex with this one actress. And he went on record in 2014 in an interview saying, I kind of wanted to bang this one chick, but she wouldn't do it, so I hired this other chick who was down for anything. Something like that. And that was in 2014.
Right.
So to see this be written and directed by two women at the time, whether or not it was produced, but that seems like a huge get to me.
Yeah.
And especially to get this kind of product out of it.
Right.
That at the end of the day, it's male money and a male gaze that's governing this, and they still were able to get these little things out.
Yeah.
And it seems like that's the best they could hope for at the time, you know?
Yeah. I can imagine, women didn't really expect or like think that equality was necessarily even a thing.
Have I made you uncomfortable
talking
about this? Okay.
No, we're all good. I'm definitely totally comfortable. I think it's really challenging me to think about like what my perspective is on all of this. But yeah, because I've never really obviously relayed 80s horror into like the Kevin Spacey whatnot or the whatever, But
you never know on the gory days.
No, totally, yeah. Man, I mean, yeah, I think it's interesting, like the fact that two women, like it almost seemed like the guys just had no concept that women were trying to kind of get in a little bit of atypical like actual feminism sort of situations in there. They kind of just were like, oh no, I mean whatever, it's a horror movie.
Well, let's talk about feminism now
sure.
versus feminism then.
Yeah.
Feminism now is much, I mean, Twitter and the social media platforms that pretty much give the life to movements like feminism, like the hashtag Me Too movement, like the hashtag This Is What Anxiety Is Like movement, and all of these things. It's much more crowdsourced than it ever was before. It's not one person who gets a feminist degree, goes on some marches, and then writes several books and goes on CNN and talks about things. It's more about, like we said before, a peer pressure mentality that, oh, there are so many people who think like me or who don't like the things I also don't like that I suddenly don't feel alone anymore.
Right.
And maybe that's what the people who would go on the news and the Daily Show and things and talk about their feminist books were trying to do. But in my opinion, and I'd love to hear yours, it seems so much more effective to get not the celebrity, not the person up on the mountain, not the person who may or may not have it all, but the neighbor, the person who just is going through the same thing you are, including your bill, including the garbage piling up or the dog you have to walk.
Yeah, totally. I actually 100% agree with that, because I think it's kind of like with celebrities, it's like, okay, yeah, but like I don't really know them. That doesn't really affect me. But then when you actually find out that, you know, with the hashtag Me Too thing, it's like on my Facebook page, I had like 50 to like 100 of my friends like talking about this stuff, and it kind of like brings more of a it's like a bigger statistic almost, you know. It's like, oh my gosh,
something
like,
you can't ignore.
Yeah, and like it's all my friends, it's all the people I care about, you know. And I think I really, I mean, I got really sad reading all of the Me Too stuff, but it was really great that something like that happened where a lot of, you know, women felt empowered to be able to divulge that kind of information, because I think for a while they definitely lived in fear of I don't know, getting any sort of, or thinking that they're alone in that. And obviously I think with something like the Me Too, it's like, wow, oh my gosh, like this is a much more prevalent issue than we totally would have thought. It's not just one celebrity, it's not just one anything, it's, oh my gosh, yeah. Everywhere.
No, and in this particular industry, it's tough because it relies on a discrepancy of power, a difference in, I have nothing. I'm from Montana, and I moved here to Hollywood because I want to be a celebrity. I want to be a big star. And some big Hollywood guy who's literally never been told no because he can pay off anyone who does.
Right. Yeah. The imbalance of power definitely in the male... on the male side has definitely led to some really, really sketchy stuff that...
I mean, you're a YouTube, a potential YouTube... I'm sorry, you are a YouTube celebrity.
Sure,
you are a firmly established YouTube celebrity, and may or may not be a target for it being taken advantage of in those ways. Have you felt that you need to kind of be on your toes? Have people tried?
Yeah, I mean, I think... I've experienced it sometimes where I think I've noticed that people's perspectives of me, or the amount that they're interested in getting to know me or getting in contact with me, has definitely changed over time, when they kind of see like, oh, Danny has influence, Danny has power, I guess, you know. And I've even found that people, you know, have wanted me to help promote certain things, or like I need like even like a GoFundMe for like a college, like I need help paying my college tuition. Danny, can you help promote my whatever? And it's interesting because I have a hard time saying no. I usually come up with a weird excuse or something, or I usually say I gotta run it through my management.
Like you owe them. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. But I am usually willing to help out whenever I can, because I know that with the popularity I've gained, I've also gained like a way to expose people all over the world to things that might need to, like, I don't know. I think I can help in that sense. Like that's something I have to offer.
Do you feel a responsibility to? Because you can?
Yeah, I think so. I feel a little bit like I need to, like that's, well, yeah, it's like as a friend, like that's something that I can contribute with. If I don't feel like I'm necessarily contributing in other ways as like a friend to people, like maybe I can, if anything, like promote something that they have. I don't know. But that's also me being like, I have a hard time saying no just in general. So whenever people usually ask me to do stuff, I'll I'll usually do it for him. But
well, we want to make sure you're
yeah.
safe out there.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
listeners, we also want to make sure you're safe. If you're an actor, a singer, or a voiceover artist, or anything that relies on your creative merit, take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Don't just take the first big apple that falls from that tree, because you never know where it's been.
Right. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there anything else, overarching things about this movie that you wanted to talk about?
Well, I mean, one thing that I was thinking of earlier is like, question I guess I had for you, because you're more of the knowledgeable expert in the 80s and early 90s horror genre. Are there many, like, is a drill a common murder weapon? That you
Not
found
in my experience.
I feel
No.
like
The
that's, like,
motorized thing is common, but
okay, yeah.
but a drill.
Yeah. I feel like chainsaws are way more,
Big
like
time.
Justice Chainsaw Massacre and all that kind of stuff. Like, that seems way more, like, useful even.
Well, it's funny to trace the history of it. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, was 1974.
Oh, wow.
And so from that point on, pretty much, you see from like 1974 to around now, 1982 to 1985, a lot of people use like weapons like chainsaws, augers, lawnmowers, a lot of different things like that.
Yeah.
And then as like the decade gets on, you get more just like robots and just like technological, like Chopping Mall had robots. I think that was 1988. So that's a great question. I hope I answered it well enough.
I watch a lot of serial killer type shows. You know, like I'll watch like Criminal Minds, Dexter. I love Dexter. Stuff like that. And I usually am really interested in kind of the MO and the murder weapon and the stuff like that. And I just thought, like, the whole time I was thinking, like, is this like a really, really popular thing to use drills? Because, like, I can't imagine it's that effective, especially when he was like,
it's really loud for one,
and like it doesn't seem like it could actually do the things that it did in the film.
No, like cut.
Like, how do you slice someone's stomach open with a drill? Like, it's supposed to just go forward. It's not supposed to be able to. So I thought that was interesting. That they, I mean, but at the same time, I mean, it's cool that they tried something different besides just a knife or a gun or something.
I thought it was pretty cool. It's unique.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird because it's called the Slumber Party Massacre, and it has nothing to do with a drill.
Right.
And Russ Thorne just kind of has a drill, and he seems really into it. Like, this is my thing. This is what I'm all about. It has nothing to do. There's no pun. There's nothing.
And they don't go back like into the background of like him as a killer. Like, what would lead him to want to use a drill?
Yeah, he clearly has a history. And that's so funny. Is that Russ Thorne is an escaped serial killer who had a record of killing 5 people in California. Escaped and got this drill and went killing. I don't know. There's so little explained, and I think like that's intentional. That he's just kind of the scary thing. That does bring up a theme though that I totally forgot about. That's kind of common in this era is fear of the mentally unstable or the mentally ill. Even just people with a mental illness is a potential serial killer, a crazy, a quote unquote crazy.
Right.
I don't know. How do you feel about that?
That. I can imagine that's probably a lot different from how it is now, where I can imagine back then mental illness was probably not as discussed. It probably wasn't as normalized.
Well, in the 80s, President Ronald Reagan at the time was closing the mental institutions, which led to a huge increase in homeless.
Right.
So essentially, the insane people were out. They were out and about. They could be anywhere. They could be in your alley. They could be in your backyard.
Yeah, and there's probably a huge amount of fear around that too. Of just like, they're insane and probably serial killers.
As somebody with diagnosed depression and anxiety, I take offense to that. And I usually identify with character. I mentioned this on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre episode because Leatherface is usually portrayed as being just mentally ill and not really a killer of his own volition, but he's pushed into it by his family, his equally mentally ill family. So to see Russ Thorne kind of just thrust into the mental serial killer thing and not really... I guess he embodies it. He doesn't talk the whole time, and he seems to have a really weird... You know what? Now that I'm talking myself through it, he is a really damaged man. He has... Something happened to him. Something happened to Russ Thorne that made him completely villainize women in a way that's not unlike the real world. God, even in our personal history, unfortunately, we have some experience with people demonizing women to the point of taking violent action on others.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bringing up the Elliot Rodger.
I am. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I'm bringing up.
Yeah.
So Russ Thorne paints a realistic picture of a crazy of. Here I am using the word crazy,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
a dangerous
Yeah.
person who may have a treatable thing, but is just out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to say Russ Thorne is a sympathetic figure,
Yeah.
but maybe I am.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody just needed to sit down and talk to him. I don't know.
Yeah. But he
But
also
it's-
seemed like he was a little bit of a sexual sadist. Where
That's what I mean,
It felt
yeah.
like he was like having sex with these people when he was killing them almost.
Oh.
Or maybe.
No, that's a great point.
In
I
the
didn't.
sense that,
Of course he is.
Especially with like the phallic
The way he holds it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's as if he's. I don't know. Maybe he was impotent. Maybe he was.
Oh.
I don't know. That's my Criminal Minds background. Usually
That's
when they
great.
have like a. Yeah, like there's anything where it seems like they're kind of like vicariously having sex through their murders, then it's as if they're impotent in real life, and that's how they're getting it out. Almost.
Maybe Russ Thorne has a grandma who cut off his penis because he was being a bad boy and she was
Ooh,
crazy.
yeah.
And now that's
Yeah.
I mean, that's what happened to what's his face in Red Dragon. I'm
Oh,
lifting
yeah.
that from the Hannibal
Okay, yeah,
mythos.
yeah.
The last thing I want to say about that drill is on IMDb it mentions that the drill is in no way portable. That is a gas-powered drill that needs to be plugged in to use. So the way he's using it would never work. It could never happen. And also it would be insanely loud.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, like it seemed like every single, and I think that's a common trope in horror movies is that it just feels like homes and like any place where like the murders happen. It's so soundproof.
Yeah.
Like you could be upstairs and not hear a murder downstairs.
Yeah,
Whereas
yeah.
in any normal home, you would hear someone screaming
Like
downstairs.
if we be quiet right now, I think we could hear our neighbors. Darn.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So here comes my
yeah.
first favorite part. Excuse me. Here comes my first favorite part of the Gory Day show, where we talk about our rating. We go and we talk about what we thought about the movie based on whatever we want, rating it on a scale of 0 to 5 thumbs. 0 being the worst, 5 being the best.
Yeah.
Danny, what did you think of the Slumber Party Massacre?
Oh man, the thing is, I would love to watch more 80s films to be able to like compare and contrast, because obviously right now I'm comparing to like modern horror films where it's like very clearly like those do a better job of scaring the shit out of me and stuff like that. It also felt like there was a lot to be explained. We didn't know anything about the backstory of Russ other than something was going on. I also thought there would be a twist or of sorts. Like it was almost setting
Like
up
what?
for a twist because it almost felt way too straightforward. Like it's just a dude who wants to murder everyone there.
Like that Valerie was helping him?
Yeah, or something, or like that. Yeah, like I thought something maybe was gonna, but they also like revealed his face like so early on that like it was not like an anonymous person doing all this. Like you could tell it wasn't Mr. What was creepy?
Mr. Contant.
Yeah. You could tell it wasn't him because it was a different face. Man, will you be upset if I don't rate it well?
Oh, no, I don't care.
0 to 5 thumbs. I'd give it like a. After we talked about it, I feel like I've actually increased my rating because you did bring light to a lot of things that I definitely looked over when I was actually watching it. As far as like also because I didn't think about the women, the women director and writer trying to like kind of slip in this stuff that typically isn't portrayed in film and horror films in particular. I'd probably give it like a 2 or a 3 thumbs.
Okay.
Do you want me to choose specifically between the two?
No,
Like, is there
you
an
don't have
official-
to.
Okay,
Though-
2.5 thumbs.
That's
then.
fine, but
Yeah.
traditionally we do assign the thumbs. So who
Okay.
do these thumbs belong to?
Ooh, like
Characters.
Oh man, Mr. Content. No, probably to Courtney gets a thumb.
Okay.
I think oh man, who deserves a thumb? The 2 horny dudes get a thumb.
They
just for
share
playing
one.
The exact they acted like they were like 12 years old, as far as like how much they let their dick control them. But if I'm actually going for like quality and stuff, actually like Courtney's character, the one pizza line gets a thumb.
Okay.
And definitely, I don't know.
I think that's all of them.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Yeah, I'll give it to the Courtney, the pizza line, and and also the half thumb that if I give it 2.5 thumbs, I'll give the half thumb to the one line where he's what's the damage? 6 so far.
6
I'll
so
give it to
far.
that line. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. But overall, I definitely wasn't necessarily scared. It kind of felt a little predictable. Like I knew it was gonna happen. And I'm pretty sure I like definitely kind of just assumed that he wasn't gonna get out alive. Like someone was gonna put up an actual fight, and they were gonna, yeah, but yeah. What do you
Cool.
also get to give it a rating?
Oh,
too?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for asking.
Yeah.
The Slumber Party Massacre doesn't even do what it set out to do better than the other movies that came out at the time. That said, it never really said it was going to. What it did do better than those other movies is present a feminist perspective within a male-designed movie, which I found remarkably refreshing. Like I said, Carrie tells this story in a different way, at least leading up to before she gets her superpowers and things like that. So there are other movies that I can point to that tell, like the Fish Out of Water Valerie story. This movie has two protagonists with Trish and Valerie, very bizarre. I like the seriousness that the women carry themselves. I love the agency that Valerie and Courtney have bearing on the plot. Even Miss Jana bears on the plot when she arrives at the end. She's the thing that leads to his final demise. The movie is not scary in the slightest. There isn't even one scene where I'm like, ooh, that was scary. There's more of the scenes that I laugh at and things like that. So with that in mind, gosh, I did enjoy the feminist stuff of it. So I'm going to give it 3 thumbs.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a solid 3. 1 thumb is going to go to Russ Thorne's severed hand. I believe it's his left hand, maybe his right, but one of those thumbs.
Yeah.
Another thumb is going to go to Trish's dad, Mr. Devereaux, who is so busy he doesn't even get a first name. He's got to go. He's got to go. We're going to be late. He's so important.
Love it.
And the last thumb is going to go to Muffin, Miss Jana's cat, that gets one of the jump scare jokes. She goes into a closet and the cat jumps out. And I've definitely done that with my cats.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate that.
Great.
So yeah, those are my 3 thumbs. I'm going to give the last one a little dew claw to Muffin.
Yeah, I'm glad that your thumb awards were about as arbitrary as mine. As far as like, I was concerned that your thumb awards were gonna be like actually like I'll give a thumb to like I really appreciated this, yeah. But you gave it to like his hand and stuff. So.
Oh yeah.
Perfect.
No, I'm not gonna set you up for that.
Yeah, totally. I'm also glad that our ratings weren't that far off. I was scared that I was gonna give it like a 1, and you're gonna give it like a 5, and I was just gonna shit all over like a film that you love.
Well, Danny Padilla, thank you so much for joining me here on the Gory Days. Where can people find you?
Oh man, youtube.com/Danny Padilla, or on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook at either Danny Padilla or Danny J Padilla. You'll find me. It'll show up. But on YouTube, I'm the first thing that shows up if you type in my name. So yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
First with a bullet.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, thanks for listening to the Gory Days. Next week, we'll be watching another fantastic film. Be sure to read the description for the announcement of what that is. And please tweet at the Gory Days. Follow us on SoundCloud.com/TheGoryDays and on Instagram.com, and let us know your thoughts on next week's film so I can read them on the air. I keep leaving time for a segment to read your tweets and your thoughts, and there are none. I don't blame you. That's okay. But please, I would love to know if you wanted to know how Kim got in the fridge. Tune in next time on the Gory Days. Stay scary out there.
The Gory Days.
If you want your thoughts on each week's movies heard on the podcast, follow us on Twitter and on Instagram at The Gory Days. And look for more episodes each and every week on